Hey, folks, pre-show time. 3 minutes and we go live on air. And this is just making sure everything's working and flowing and all of that good stuff. So it looks like that's set and that's set and that's set. So I'm all set. So I got 2 minutes and 40 seconds to blow. How's everybody doing tonight? Good to see you. So here we are. And getting ready to broadcast. Hope you all had a good day today. That everything is going well for you. Make sure that's up and that's up and that's up. I'm pretty sure that's set. That is. All right. Get rid of that. Go over there. Boom. Hey, everybody. How you doing? This is just the pre-show for those of you who haven't been here before. 3 minutes after the top of the hour, we go live on the radio station. But we're live over here on the YouTube, just getting prepped like we do every day. So welcome to the program. Morgan Snow, good to see you. And Rendell Flegg, good to see you as well. Steph Cuervo Queen. And Grumpy Stack, how you doing, yo, down in Louisiana? Ellie, say hi. Don't stand there and stare.
Did you eat my Pringles?
Nope. I got my own. And I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I'm not going to talk about this when I'm doing this. This is pre-show for the radio. Bye. Bye. I'll beat you with a stick. No, I didn't eat yours. Mine are up in the cupboard. Sassy pants. All right. Familial interlude, which are only allowed in the pre-show these days, but sometimes they just do it anyway. During the live broadcast, we got 40 seconds and we go live. Hey, Pearl Jones. Good to see you. Who did I see that I haven't seen? It seemed like, oh, Heidi. Heidi, how you doing? Good to see you. I don't know if you've been here before, but to the show. I don't remember if I've seen you in the show before, but welcome. I'm glad you're here. All right. We're going to go dark for about 10 seconds, and then we go live. So everybody sit tight. Don't go away. Stand by.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey, folks. Happy Monday. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts. This here is my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here broadcasting live in audio format only because it's radio over at subspace.radio and odysseyradio.com. We're Subspace Odyssey, as you can tell by the logo down there in the corner. But Odyssey, ODYSY radio.com. You can also go over to the YouTube channel, and that's my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And hit the subscribe button when you're there, and the alert button, and the join button if you want to find out what you can do to be part of this broadcast. And the best chat room for chatting during the show is over on the YouTube page. If you are coming in from Facebook, we can see you. I can see you, but not everybody can. And you might not be able to see everybody else's chats. So if you have the ability, come on over to the YouTube chat room and join the fellow Intrepids who are already in the chat, inhabiting it, infesting it, making it something cool and groovy. There's a word for my youth. Far out was the one we used when I was in the 70s, in middle school to high school. So welcome to the program. I want to start by showing you a little book my 11-year-old daughter got. Now, Rainey, my wife, took our two middle schoolers out to a scouting weekend. They went down to Galena, Illinois, and they had about 26 scouts with them. Rainey is the leader of the girls troop of the Boy Scouts. That sounds so funny. The BSA, they call it. And when they started opening up about 5-6 years ago to allowing girls to come into Cub Scouts, then they also allowed them into Boy Scouts. She is the scout master for the girls branch, I guess you'd call it, of the Boy Scouts in our area. So they went to Galena, and they all went shopping during the day after they saw some of the historical sites. They watched some Civil War reenacting down there. Ulysses S. Grant's home is there. And so they did some of that stuff. But then they went shopping, and they found these neat little shops. And my 11-year-old brought home this book. It's called Haunt This Journal. I want to show you that. Now, we generally reserve paranormal for Friday talk on this show. We do political and historical, and as you know, it's sociological and psychological stuff all during the week, other than Fridays. But I've got this topic that I'm stretching over from last Friday that's probably going to carry us through the week, this paranormal sociology. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. But I wanted to show you this. You could probably plug this right in under that topic, paranormal sociology. And where in the main topic, we're going to be more looking at all this debate that's going on in the paranormal. Within the paranormal, without the paranormal, from the scientific community to the religious community, and the debate that's out there. And the intransigencies that exist from all sides. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this book I thought it was a kid's book when she showed it to me. Haunt This Journal, because it looks like this on the inside. It's all these journal pages. I'll show it to those of you who are over on the YouTube page. You can see some of this. And it's, games. And look, it's got a little Ouija board that you can make on your own. Stuff like that. And as I'm looking at this and the way it's laid out, and it's a journal, so you can write your stuff, all of this, I started looking at this book, and it says, what is that? Streborn, whatever. Write your name backwards. So to own the book. So there, my daughter wrote her name backwards at the beginning. Claim this journal as yours out loud. This is my journal, you say, and all of that. Open your mind is the next page. Then brace yourself. Now, this looks like it's all set up for young people. It's really not. It's actually got a warning on it. On the inside, it says, let's see where it says this. The first page, as you go into this little book, has, it's got your publishing information, a little scary doll face. And it says, a friendly reminder from beyond the grave. Guliana made this journal just for you. Put all of your trust in her. After all, what is the worst that could happen? The spirits she wants you to meet have been anxiously waiting. And that's the opening page. Now, that could be a fun kid's introductory book to paranormal things and all of that. Claim this journal as your own. Write your name backwards and reflect this page in a mirror. It says there, which she did. Open your mind and brace yourself and light a candle to ask the spirits a question. It's one of the first active pages. Light a candle to ask the spirits questions. A high flame means yes. A low flame means no. Now, what does this little 2-page spread tell you? And there's room to write their notes in it. They say that this book, that kids should be careful, or parents should be careful, or, this might scare some kids and stuff like that. This is stuff that's basic conjuring right here. Light a candle, ask questions of the spirits. A high flame means yes, a low flame means no. Now, scientifically, that might be nothing. It's high and a low flame. Add eyes to these portraits and then scratch them out. That's the next page. So it's one of those, it's an activity page. Then this is the 13th page. Write the number 13 over and over and over, which my daughter did. And play your favorite record backwards. What do you hear? It's asking you. Some of this is very interesting. It's kind of fun and interesting if you want to start learning some basics. Bring this journal into a dark, empty room and ask aloud if you're alone. For an 11-year-old, tell friends to start a story. Tell friends a scary story in a dark room while holding a flashlight up to your face. That's just like campground stuff, campfire stuff. When you notice a light flicker, write down when and where. So this book goes on. It just says, burn this page, is all it says. Then across from it, you are a spirit trapped in this house. Use the ashes to write a message to the outside world. So it's conjuring. Close your eyes and imagine something or someone jumping out at you. What is that? So as I start looking at this, I go, and she was kind of laughing with her friends about it. It's got here, write your own spell. Use your brew. What are you conjuring? What are you conjuring? This is later on. I'm skipping some pages. Make your own altar, it says. Now, this book, by the way, is written a guy named Alan Robert, which is kind of funny. I'm Scott Alan Roberts, but I can't see where it's said in here. Oh, some of the activities. It's on the legal page down here at the bottom. It says some of the activities proposed in this book may not be suitable for unsupervised children. Now, the publisher of this is IDW. I think it's Independent something. IDW, a division of Idea and Design Works. It's put together by witches and people like that. Check under your bed. But the one that really caught my attention when she was showing this to me was this 2-page spread, about 3/4 through the book. What do you got there? You got a Ouija board, and you got a planchette, and it says here, ask the spirit a question by using the board. Use a shot glass as a planchette. So it includes a Ouija board in the book. And what does it say at the beginning? Some children may need to be supervised. So they mean for kids to be able to see it. Smudge sage. This is at the end. Smudge sage over this journal to cleanse it. And so I started looking at that. And she and her friends, Rowan and her friends, were kind of laughing about it. Oh, look at this one. Bring this journal into the woods. What is the wind whispering? That's toward the end of the book as well. So I think when you've got kids that pick up a book like this, earlier in the book, channel your energy into the voodoo doll. Recite the revenge spell. What does the revenge spell say? Pierce the doll and slip your needles in. What was brought down upon me be returned but ×3. Head to toe, skin and nerve, may you get exactly what you deserve. It's a revenge spell with a voodoo doll. So I started looking through this. I was bothered by that Ouija board page. Not because I think it's not a useful tool if you use it right, correctly. Some people will disagree with me on that. But you've also got to be able to know how to close it down. You've got to know what you're doing, how to open it, how to use it, how to close it. It doesn't teach you that in this book. Tune your television to a channel filled with white noise. Raise the volume and listen closely. And you're supposed to write it down. So when she and her friends were kind of laughing about it, let's see, they've got even tarot in here. Choose a tarot card that suits you. Attach or draw it here. So this is really basic stuff. It's not bad stuff, but it's stuff that kids ought not be messing with. And so I told her and her friends, it says on the back cover, by the way, the back cover says, warning, do as you wish, may it be fun, but what you unleash cannot be undone. There's truth to that. So I told them, look, and they're laughing, and I said, I'm going to have a very, I'm going to have a serious moment with you as we're talking about this little book. I said, this stuff in here is not fake. This is real stuff. I've experienced a lot of this stuff. And I said, you need to be very careful. I said, the Ouija board stuff, I do not want you touching. I said, because what you can do, and I wanted to scare them a little bit. I said, if you open up a door and let something in and you don't know how to close that board down, I said, you could trap that thing here. In your house, this house, it could follow you. And they got kind of wide-eyed. And Rowan said, oh, we aren't going to do the Ouija board thing. I said, don't. And a lot of that stuff, I said, I don't want you doing any of this without talking to me first, or I'll be there with you, or we'll just take and put this up until you're 18. So I wanted to share that with you. It's called, it says a Gore, G-O-R-E, Gorgeous Companion to the best-selling coloring book series. And they have in the back, explore the beauty of the universe, the beauty of horror universe with their different coloring books. And Roan was all excited. Look at all the different coloring books, Dad. That's inside the back cover. And their beauty of horror is their overall titled things. And so this is getting kids to open themselves up to the supernatural, to the paranormal. What do you guys think of that? If you're here in the chat room, let me know what you think. You've probably been saying some things in here that I haven't seen because I've been talking about it here. So I'm going to scroll through just a little bit on this and see what some of your thoughts are. Yeah, your Kat says her grandmother, my great-grandma, and those things haven't been allowed in the house. My grandmother and her would have flipped their lids. Yep. Voodoo dolls, I know about, says Field Guy. You're down in voodoo territory down there outside of Nolans. Steph, whoa, she says. That ain't going to cleanse that journal. No, it's not. You're right, Steph. Ouija boards can be made from anything. Yeah, they can. My aunt, who was a witch when I was growing up, and into my 20s and my 30s before she passed away at a very young age. I've talked about her before. She was only 11 years older than I am. But she would make Ouija boards out of a shot glass or a small glass jar, and she'd draw out her letters on a piece of paper. So you can make a Ouija board out of anything. The point is that you're conjuring. This book is teaching my kids to conjure. We teach any kid who picks this up to conjure. Now, have we been opened up to this? Hey, there's Heidi again, not trusting my grandbaby with that book. No way. I agree with you. And Rainey had something to say about it. Rainey let her buy it because it looked like at first glance, when you flip through this, because of the illustrated pages and stuff, Rainey said, oh, it looked like a kid's book. And she didn't think much of it at first. Just a goofy kid's book about horror stuff. It's a lot deeper than that. And so this is actually a primer to conjuring spirits, just communicating with spirits, to experimenting with things, down to as simple as lighting a candle and saying the high flame means yes, the low flame means no. And you know that stuff works. It's like I've got these right here. I've got my divining rods that John Ward had made for me. These were made in Egypt by a local artisan in Qom, Egypt, one of the little villages there outside of Luxor. And they're made out of cast iron. And they're not loose. You just have to hold them in your hand the right way. And I could use these, and I would say, they would cross to say yes, and they would part to say no, or they'd stay straight if it was neutral. And John would use these to map out underground ruins. He'd say, all right, guys, he'd say, and John would teach dowsing class. He learned from somebody who's pretty renowned in that field, which I don't know his name off the top of my head. But he'd say, I want you to map out where this ruin is underneath the ground here. And he'd walk, and when he'd hit where the wall was supposed to be, they parted like this to show the wall. And then he'd say, okay, take me to the corner. And they'd go to the corner, and then one would turn in. And he's at the corner. And so he'd trace the corner, a door, a window, and things like that. And he used those. And we used these once, John and I, doing some paranormal investigating, some ghost hunting. And he said, I've never seen it do that before. It's where we were sitting and John was holding his set of rods and he was asking questions and they would cross for a yes and part for a no. And I started asking it questions. I said, John, ask it this. And then it would start answering right away. John said, it's extraordinary. I've never seen that do that before. You're asking the questions, not me, and it's answering. And so I've asked things with this. I've asked it to help me locate things. Hey, do you know where I lost a big bag of sand that I'd taken from Senenmut's, the outside of Senenmut's tomb in Egypt, and also different places that had little bags stacked in the big Ziploc bag, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I asked the rods, I said, could you show me where that bag is? And they would turn. They'd point that way. So I'd follow, and then I'd go to a place and it would part or it would cross. I would walk toward my daughter and I'd say, will you show me when this passes over here? Let's see if I can even demonstrate very quickly. This isn't our main topic tonight, obviously, but I'm going to show this to you. If this works tonight, and I'm not holding them right, but I'd say, can you, here, I'll stand up. I would ask, could you cross when I pass over the microphone? Well, see, now look, and I didn't do anything there. They crossed just like that. And I say, thank you, whoever's governing that. Let's do it again. I'm pointing these straight ahead, and I'd say, show me where the microphone is. And they cross right over the microphone. Or a book, or a person. I did that. I said, I walked toward my daughter over her head, and I said, when I pass over her head, will you cross? And they crossed over her head. So this is all, I only brought that up to say, you can use rods, you can use candles, you can use anything. You're conjuring something is working through you, something's communicating with you. So now I'm going to segue this and talk about this book. Let me know your thoughts on what you think about this. And if you want to know what this is, if you want to get one of these, I'll give you all the information. Just write me, message me, or I'll show you more about it another time. But the segue is to get into this conversation about paranormal sociology. And that would be the argument or the debate or the discussion, the dialogue about the pros and cons. Is it real? Is it fake? Science versus faith or religion or spirituality versus skepticism and things like that. And so we started talking about this last Friday. And I want to be able to jump into this again with you and talk about this a little bit more. And I want to I can't really pick it up where we left off so I'm just going to have to recap a little bit about where we were. Let me find my notes here where we left off. I tried to mark it, but we left off in a really interesting place. Hold on. I got to redo this. I'm filling my screen with all my notes about things. It's not what I wanted to do. Hang on. Let's get out of this. I have to go back to. All right, hang on, folks. Not a technical glitch, just my own glitch here. I got to get back to where I was on my page because this is doing something wonky to my page. There we go. All right. So let me open this back up. I had to shut that down. Let's see. Where did I put it? Bear with me. Hold on. That's odd. See, I've just lost my place. I'm just going to start talking through it while I find it. Last night we were talking about these differences, these intransigencies. But what I mean by intransigency is it's that stuff where somebody is so locked into their particular social bubble that there is no convincing them otherwise, and they will never find a way to find any kind of common ground to agree. You've got people that will, for some reason, this just wants to keep going to a full page, and I'm not sure why. And it's filling my whole screen, and I can't see the show or anything I'm doing. So bear with me while I make this work. So the debate rages on about all this stuff. This book I just told you about, the divining rods I just told you about, is that all stuff that is real? Many of us believe it is. But you're going to have the other side that's going to tell you, no, you're making that. It's your own kinetic energy or whatever it might be. And I would be one to say, no, I think that there is a little more to it than that. I think that there is, it's not just kinetic energy. I believe it's spiritual energy. And I could get into a debate with somebody over this stuff. And, they're going to debate me, and everybody's going to hold to their position. And the sociology about there's a political side of this. We see it in politics. We see it in religion. We see it in faith issues. We see it in the paranormal. And that is the this whole idea that there I finally found my notes where I left them. Well, the tab I left them open on. We see this debate raging on, and we see it across the board, how people will agree or disagree regarding anything from religion to science to faith to the paranormal to whatever it might be. And so where we left off last night, I was kind of talking about, this has got me on a ufology page, so I'm going to just pass on from that and start by defining what it is, what the paranormal actually is. I think everybody out there thinks they have a pretty good idea of what the paranormal is. I think the paranormal as we know it today has become fairly pop cultural. We've seen Josh, tribalism. We all want to belong to something. We all want to believe in something. That's why you see debates on politics in the United States, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. Why do those debates get so harsh? And why is it? Because everybody draws a line. Everybody says, no, you can't convince me that that's wrong or that that's right because I believe this, or this is my party. I have to believe this way. We see that. So we see it in political ideology. I might say to you, the current sitting president is not good for the office. He shouldn't be there. I'm watering it down just for sake of an open conversation here. And you might say, well, I think the people behind him are a good thing to have. We're not voting for him. We're voting for the administration or the cabal that's behind him that's running the country right now. And I might say that's not who the president is supposed to be. And we might disagree and bat heads and knock walls. And so, you get it in, Matthew, you get it in all kinds of things, transgender, LGBTQ, race discussions, etc. Yeah, it's across the board. Everybody draws their line in the sand, and the same with the paranormal. But let's start by defining the paranormal a little better than maybe you have ever defined it yourself. And so what people commonly term paranormal is intrinsically a Western term, meaning Western culture. And it's an ontological category. It's the substance of the term rests in its contrast to what is designated as normal. And it needs to be kept in mind that paranormal designated as paranormal, or phenomena designated as paranormal, I got to put on my glasses to read my own notes because of my eyes. Phenomena that refers the concept of objects, not to objects in and of themselves. So this is a useful insight to apply to our own understanding of paranormal phenomena, and that paranormal objects may not intrinsically be unusual or on a Ouija board. It's a physical piece of board with numbers or letters printed on it. It's not in and of itself something, it's what you do with it, the phenomena you create out of it. And so those objects may not be intrinsically unusual, odd, bad, good, weird, wicked, if indeed they exist in a form resembling what they're claimed to. And that's something that most proponents of the paranormal ideas are only too happy to concede to. I concede to that. The term paranormal is merely a relative concept. All right, when we're talking about paranormal, something that is outside the realm of the normal. Para, outside. And so the term, or encircling the outside. So the term seems to have gained a lot of popularity in the late 1930s, the early 1940s, and it supersedes another term. Supernormal phenomena was the original, kind of the original term, which was popular with psychic researchers in the 20s. And what we're going to get to at some point down the road here with this whole idea that we're covering here on sociology and the paranormal is the notion of a category of phenomena or ideas concerning such phenomena that lie outside what is considered acceptable, what is considered normal, what is considered the kind of knowledge that would be normal out there. Going to the dentist, driving your car, mowing your grass, shopping, all of that stuff, the normal stuff of life. And especially in Western culture. So now in contrast, many non-Western countries, such as, think of Brazil and India, the paranormal category is generally indistinguishable from mystical, spiritual, and traditional folk magical beliefs. And this lack of distinction has facilitated the acceptance of paranormal-related ideas in those countries without the stigma frequently attached to such beliefs in the West, where predominantly scientific paradigms have largely invalidated and Christian paradigms have largely condemned such ideas. It's like the stories I've told in the past in other topics like this that we've talked about. I remember when I was in the church and I was in seminary, I was a youth pastor, and we had somebody come to our church from an organization called Baptist Mid Missions. And they were a mission board that would send out missionaries around the world. They were kind of the administrative board. And he told a story of a young missionary who went, he was over in Africa, he was out in the bush somewhere, a little village, and they had a little square in the village, a public square, and they had a little god, an idol set up there. And people would every day stop by and they'd drop little offerings of food, rarely coins because they weren't well-to-do. They didn't have much money to work with, cigarettes, crops, things like that. And this young missionary went out with his Bible in his hand, and he went out and he stood on that square where all these offerings were, and he kicked all these offerings around. He's preaching God. This is all false idols. This is the stuff of Satan, and he kicks it around, and he kicked over the idol. Now, as the story goes, we don't know if this is exactly the cause, but the next morning, and he woke up and the foot that he kicked the idol with was infected with something. And that infection wouldn't get better, and as the days dragged by, it ran all the way up his leg. Finally, they had to ship him back to the States for medical attention. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he lost his leg from the knee down. Now, can you over-spiritualize that and say it was obviously the spirits that he was mocking and taunting? Could it have been something completely different because he's a Westerner out in the bush in Africa? So the warning that the guy from the administrator of Baptist Mid-Missions was telling us is, when you go out into these other countries as missionaries and so on, he says you have to respect the fact that they have belief systems. Now, he was pushing Christianity, obviously, as a missionary. But he said you've got to be very careful because these are real entities that exist. And he says, and of course he was going off we're not battling against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the air, as the New Testament verse would say. So I bring that up to say, in defining the paranormal, in the West, we have one look at it, and in the non-Western countries, we have a very different look at what those things are like. And this lack of distinction between, in the paranormal category, you've got the generally indistinguishable from magic, spiritual, traditional folk magical beliefs, all of that. And this lack of distinction has facilitated the acceptance of paranormal-related ideas in all of those other countries without the stigma frequently attached to such beliefs in the West. And where it's really the dominant scientific paradigms have largely invalidated, Christians have condemned, and so on. And so in Western terms, the paranormal can be understood as a category that denotes this wide range of alleged phenomena judged to be unexplained or inexplicable in terms of normal, quote unquote, you see me doing my air quotes, scientific understanding. And this categorization relies heavily on the notion of what's considered to be normal. What's normal to me might not be normal to you. It's like if I was to go political, what were they talking about 2 and 3 years ago? This is going to be the new normal because of COVID. And I say, and I rejected that. No, that's the temporary normal, I said. We'll go back to normal when this is over, which we see a lot of happening, by the way. Set that aside. That's not what I'm talking about. And so the categorization relies heavily on the notion of what's considered normal, which is a very subjective term, which itself is very arbitrary judgment. It leaves the definition of what qualifies as paranormal open to a wide variety of interpretations and opinions. For example, you've got ex-parapsychologist Susan Blackmore said you can't define the paranormal. No one has come up with an adequate definition of the paranormal. She said that back in 96. So while Blackmore prefers this fairly narrow paraphysical definition, namely something that violates really fundamental physical principles, she admits that this is purely her own working definition. Something that violates really fundamental physical principles. So in their examination of the concepts of the occult, Colin Campbell and Shirley McIver, way back in the 80s, warned against purely negative definitions of the paranormal, pointing out that there are many ideals that fall outside the realm of mainstream science that would not be considered by most people to be occult at all. Instead, Campbell and McIver prefer a more substantive definition that places the emphasis on certain features of occult ideas, such as their magical or their spiritual qualities. And the same argument could be applied to definitions of the paranormal. However, it's difficult to define a shared quality that links together the myriad of alleged phenomena that come to be labeled as paranormal. And I only say alleged because I'm trying to get above the discussion and look back in, I've always said to understand something better, you got to step outside the box and look back in. When I was writing my books on the Nephilim and the reptilians and the Exodus, I said, I was consulting with my old pastor friend, John Larson, Parson Larson, I called him. And he said, well, what's the basis for how you're looking at these things? I said, I put it all in a box, a metaphoric box, but I have to step outside that box and look back in So I'm not governed by my bias. So I'm not governed by my faith in God. So I'm not governed by my belief in science. So I'm not governed by my acceptance of magic or those other things. I've got to wipe those all clean and look back in as I'm trying to define something or piece it together for myself. So there are problems in treating with any category as possessing certain intrinsic substantive qualities, as it fails to consider the variable ways in which the category might be defined. Like I look at a Ouija board. Some of you might go, I don't touch those things. Those are pure. I had somebody say those are pure evil. Burn it. I've had others say, like Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She was the first one I heard say this 20 years ago. She said something like, a Ouija board is just a tool. It's an inanimate object. It's what you do with it and whether or not you know how to open it and close it and how to act with it so it doesn't affect anybody else. So there are variables even on an object of paranormal activity, such as a Ouija board. And then, of course, there are those who don't believe they do anything at all. And I've told you one of my first Ouija board story a long time ago. I'm not going to get into it tonight, but it left me breaking the thing up and burning it. And left my wife at the time in tears. And my aunt, who was the witch, when I told her about it the next morning, she kind of laughed. She goes, oh, those spirits are just fucking with you. And she said, next time you do that, though, why don't you come and help or have me over and I'll help you do it. So what's more important is that we understand the way that participants in the paranormal debate how they debate themselves. And that's kind of I use that word twice, but you'll have to forgive me for that. Those in the paranormal discussions, how they debate themselves, and how they understand the categories, as this is going to indicate the way the discourses have defined the term and placed it within a particular truth regime. So, in its narrower usage, the paranormal category refers to phenomena beyond the laws of currently understood physics, sometimes referred to as paraphysical phenomena or PSI. And it includes subjects such as extrasensory perception, ESP, which you hardly hear that term used anymore, don't you? Everybody says psychic or mediumship or intuitive properties, telepathy, mediumship, communication with the dead, psychokinesis, affecting objects from a distance, grumpy stack, your pants are falling now because I'm telekinetic. I used to say I'm telepathetic. So there you go. But these subjects don't necessarily have a clear paraphysical component, such as ufology or cryptozoology or cryptoarchaeology, the study of ancient mysteries, which I love. And they've tended to be excluded from this somewhat narrow category of the paranormal. And they don't necessarily violate, as Blackstone puts it, fundamental physical principles. The Loch Ness Monster, the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the Jinn, which I believe I have encountered. And I say that very lightly because of my belief in them. That all of these things are postulated to be creatures like others that roam or have roamed the earth, aliens from outer space. There's supposedly beings that have evolved on other planets. The lost city of Atlantis is believed to represent a civilization much like other great ancient cities on the earth, except that it's believed to have existed in a much earlier era. And, you only got guys like Plato that wrote about it. I mean, gosh, that's fake. Well, we like Plato on everything else except Atlantis. It must have been allegorical, people will say. And so these ideas may question established notions of history, of taxonomy, but they do not question basic principles of physics like the spirit realm does. And in the last few decades, the term paranormal has really been employed in a much broader sense. When parapsychologists use the term paranormal, they intend for it a considerably narrower scope than do the skeptics and much of the media in general and public, for whom the paranormal is sometimes synonymous with the occult and Satan, follow me, or the supernatural. And so within this whole wider definition, paranormal tends to refer to all types of reported phenomena considered to be outside the realm of mainstream science. And they might even lump religion. Religion is put in a different category. And the term is used interchangeably with terms such as the unexplained, the extraordinary, the mysterious phenomena. And it's this wide sense of the term that I employ in my own studies, that I'm going to employ in this study and research that we're going to do for a while. We'll stay on this topic as long as it's got life to it and people are enjoying it, because I got a lot of material on this, folks. This isn't a 45-minute topic. This is a 45-day topic. Don't know that we'll drag it out that long, but you'll see. Depends on how far I rabbit trail off my notes. So many of these topics, regardless of their particular focus, they tend to be influenced by the same politics of truth. The politics of truth we're going to be talking about a lot as part of a broader debate surrounding unorthodox ontological claims. The politics of belief, that's what drives the debate. That's the sociological portion of the debate and the dialogue, the sides, the lines drawn in the sand, and so on. I realize that there's going to be many within the aforementioned fields who are going to question what I have to say about it, my take on it, my particular bent on it, my particular subjective definitions of things in the broader paranormal debate. And normally, quite contrary to the objective of what we're doing here, those things are motivated by various pejorative or ontological interests aimed at discrediting all these fields as a general discreditation. Let's, in one swath, say none of them are real. For example, if you lump parapsychology in with UFOs and Bigfoot, and that's seen as by psychic researchers to be a means of belittling their field of endeavor. And rather ironically, the same set of sort of protest is made by ufologists when their field is associated with psychic studies. But now you're seeing some blending of that. You're seeing all these circles starting to join in the middle, and you got all these crossover areas in between. But and rather ironically, that protest made by ufologists is associated with psychic studies. And the focus of this study that we're doing now, at any rate, is not on the subject matter that constitutes any so-called paranormal category of knowledge, but on the debate that surrounds subject areas that, whether paranormal proponents like it or not, have become associated with this major category. And so it's the very indeterminate nature of the paranormal category and the politics of its application that's of interest to me here in this particular study we're going to do. And so it shouldn't be seen, anything I say here shouldn't be seen as any more than a loose, expedient designation for a type of knowledge claim that is contested in orthodox academic and religious circles on the basis of its marginalized status. Okay. Following all of that? So we're going, I said Friday when I started this is going to be a little thicker, but it's thicker about the stuff that we think we're so familiar with. But we're going to get a little heady in some of this stuff. So it all should be pointed out that it is on the intellectual aspects of this discourse we're going to do surrounding people's participation in the paranormal debate, in particular the exchanges between paranormal proponents and opponents, that I'm going to focus. Participants' intellectual involvement can be usefully contrasted with experiential or performative forms of involvement, including participation in various occult practices, paranormal research practices, and so on. And occult practices concern attempts by participants to gain access to or to seek control of occult or paranormal forces. And by occult, by the way, quick definition while we're taking all this to define the paranormal. Occult just means it's unknown knowledge. And so occult practices include witchcraft, sorcery, paganism, which we've talked about a lot on this show, mediation, mediumship, channeling. And some of the ritual aspects of occult practice have been studied by all kinds of anthropologists throughout the last several decades. The focus that we have here is on the intellectual mode of involvement. And the emphasis on such forms of participation is deliberate on my part, for they really reveal the truths that guide paranormal-related thinking and behavior and the political contestations that surround those truths. This is not to say that rituals and other spiritual religious type of practices do not also express truths and political orientations, but rather they often do so in a much more symbolic, subtle manner that's not readily discernible to the analyst and require really a more speculative, interpretive approach to those things. So by my employing the term involvement, I need to qualify that a little bit, given that some analysts like to make a distinction between paranormal belief and paranormal involvement. And the term involvement would be normally to apply to those enthusiasts who pursue their paranormal interests in a more active manner, such as by reading a book about it, watching a TV show, attending meetings and events and conferences, and conducting rituals of their own. And so in contrast to those who merely have an opinion about the paranormal but don't actively participate in the scene. But I found that even those whose paranormal interests stop at merely having an opinion about the subject are, through the formative expression, the defense of that opinion, even to themselves in their own minds, actively involved in the paranormal debate. That puts them into the debate. So consequently, the distinction between belief and involvement is, in my opinion, rather tenuous. You can believe in something and you can have involvement in it. They aren't really all that different. And the participants that of all of these areas that we've covered here are those who are actively engaged in publicly promoting and defending their views at venues such as society meetings, conferences, internet discussion groups, and so on and so on and so on. And these are the participants who might be described as hardcore and whose belief positions are more enduring, they're more resolute, and consequently, they're those who tend to be most political in their involvement, and maybe the more intransigent peoples within those groups, because they are the people that cannot be convinced otherwise and don't want to be convinced otherwise, don't need to agree to disagree. All right. Now, on the radio show, by the way, folks, we're running out of time. We got about 3.5 minutes left on the radio, and then we're going to go into the captain's cabin. We're going to stay live over on the YouTube page. So you can come and join us there when we're done. But the belief of people in such phenomena is not, of course, the focus of what I'm talking about. I'm not going to be talking so much about their belief. Sociologist Eric Good devoted a whole study to the sociological basis of paranormal beliefs. And there's no attempt on my part to replicate any of that examination work that he did. My interest is primarily in the dispute that takes place around paranormal beliefs. And hence, I'm concerned with explaining behavior rather than so much its belief systems. It's like what I did in my book, the Rise and not the Rise and Fall of the Nephilim, the next one, The Secret History of the Reptilians. I started out describing the reptilians as we understand them in pop culture and in people who really believe that stuff. But the book more tended to go into the psychology of why we need those things. I explored the history of it, where it came from, and why we as people need to put our belief in certain factors. This is kind of what I want to do here with this whole sociological paranormal thing, is I want to put it into a context of looking at why we believe these things. Why does the dispute that takes place around paranormal beliefs exist? There's no suggestion made by me, or that I will make in the future on this series, that belief in the paranormal is in need of explanation, sociological or otherwise. I don't believe you need to explain that. Insofar as belief systems are addressed, like the way I've done it tonight, I'm going to address them all the time and address them. But they're done so only as a means for understanding interaction between all the enthusiasts, as belief and practice are closely intertwined in all humans and all human endeavors. And I got to stop there for the radio. So we've got about 40 seconds and we're out on radio. So all of those of you listening over on the radio stations, thanks for listening. We're going to get out of here. You can join us over in the chat room for the captain's cabin. And so everybody, stand by. Radio listeners, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey, folks, welcome back. This is the Captain's Cabin. This is the after show. We're not going to go very long tonight. I say that many nights, and I say it many nights because every time I say it, we end up going longer and overtime. But so we're going to talk about this a little bit more. I've got Michael waiting in the wings over here. We're going to bring him in, and we're going to talk about some of this stuff, and you can make your calls into the show. I am going to paste the link that you need to get into this show if you want to talk about some of these things in the show. There it is. Should be coming up everywhere. And let's bring Michael in. Boom. Michael, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, hanging in there, bud. Doing
Right
any
on.
better. Yeah, being any better
Look
than
at that beautiful sunset behind you.
That's what I'm saying. It never changes, right? No, I was going to say, I've seen people disagree on the color of the sky. So,
Yeah.
any field you go into, somebody's going to have their opinion. Then if you hurt their feelings, then it don't become factual. It becomes more of an opinion-based thing.
Very true.
But I was going to tell people I'm sitting in for KB in the morning. It'll be on Facebook Live. So if you don't have me on Facebook, feel free to add me. And that way you can see the stream come up because me and Scotty tried to set it up earlier. And that did not go very well for me.
Yeah. We need a little bit more time to go through a tutorial for you.
Like I said,
otherwise, it gets really convoluted real quick.
and
Hey, Sarah, how you doing?
Hey guys,
How's it going?
it's going. It's Monday. Happy
It's
Monday.
Monday. It is what it is.
all day long. People don't have any idea how much work he does behind the camera to get everything set up.
Someday it was daunting at first. Now I do it almost by rote now. So, yeah, it takes a little bit of messing around. So, Sarah, you had said yesterday you were sorry you missed this show, that you were interested in this topic, and you got to hear a little bit tonight. I did not advance very far. I went through about 2 paragraphs of my notes, and that's it.
It sounds like you got a topic for the week. So
yeah, or 2 or 3, because this is going to get really thick. It can get really heavy, because I want to talk about this stuff, and I want people to enjoy it, but I want them to glean some good information out of this. So, what are your thoughts so far? What's on your mind? Let's put it that way. You don't have to comment on what I said. Maybe you got your own thoughts on all of this.
well, I mean, I think that the whole belief in the paranormal, and because you were like you were talking about earlier with that book that you had given your kids and all.
Yeah,
all that
this
stuff.
one
The
right here.
paranormal is integrated into our culture on every level, not just on a conjuration high spiritual level, but even in the subtle, in
Yes.
everyday life, and things we don't even realize we do that are
Right.
superstition or superstition or anything. Like if you're knocking on wood, the originations of the whole idea of knocking on wood is to warn the fairies, like, hey, I need some
Hey,
help,
Yeah, I
knock
need
on
help
wood.
here.
Tossing spilled salt over the shoulder. That's
Yeah.
supposed to be supposed to ward off the devil. Every time you
Right.
spill salt. So I mean, on not just everyday daily life or in special occasions in which you may want to perform, in which a person may inadvertently or vertently or willingly want to do an invocation or conjuration or whatever intention it is. And
Right.
magic and magic itself, whether it be it's a form of a
Okay, Mike.
focused intention. I mean,
Yes.
in some ways, you can even consider everyday prayer a type of focused intention, a type of magic. So I
Right.
mean, in that way, that could be also considered paranormal in a
Yes.
way. But
Yes.
and paranormal has always been kind of vague and shaky. Everybody has their own different definitions. I mean, I haven't even fleshed out my own definitions. You
Right.
can maybe call
That's
it
where I mentioned it's
supernatural, or
arbitrary. It can be
yeah,
really subjective. So,
supernatural or preternatural, or phenomenon. Like you were talking earlier about the conflict I mean, the conflict that it's supposed to be a conflict of perspectives, which
yes.
I think in this case it's sort of like it's one of the few cases where you can have your cake and eat it too, because you can
Yes.
have a
I
belief.
get that.
You can yeah, you can have a belief in the paranormal, and that doesn't mean you don't have to be logical or scientific. You can
Exactly.
have both.
It's like I
Yeah,
say about being skeptical. I don't think skepticism and a belief in the paranormal or the spiritual or whatever you want to call
they're
it,
not
they're
diametrically
not
opposed.
diametrically opposed. You have to be a good skeptic to be a good paranormalist, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So,
they both are necessary, and
yeah.
balance each other out. You can't go into
Let me
other
just
extremes.
interject something here. I see Chuck Thurston was mentioning in the chat room. He says, "Sorry, off topic. I love the surprise in life. Someone I knew died and left me a ton of old Roman coins. So I'm cleaning some to identify them. Just found a Hebrew coin from around 450 BC.
Wow.
Chuck, that's fantastic. I'll send you my mailing address so you can box that up and send it over to me. That's right up my field of study. That is pretty darn cool. You know what we found along those lines? We found a when I was out, and Sarah, we'll get back to this, but because of what Chuck brought up, the last time I was at Gebel El Silsila with John and Maria, they found in a they were unearthing on one side of the Nile over above the quarries were the quarries or the stables of Tiberius Caesar. And it was Tiberius was never there. It was his Roman officials were there. They had a stable there because they were quarrying stone out of there too. And there's just the foundations, a few blocks, one level tall, up on the top of this mound above the maybe 20-foot tall cliff faces that were quarries. And in these rooms that were up there, they kept finding objects, little turquoise beads, things like that all were 2,000 years old. And they found a piece of cloth. And I've got a picture of it somewhere. But this cloth would have been like white or off white in color, and it had striping in it. But it was they found little bundles of braided hair, little pieces about 3-4 inches long, braids, some a little longer. These were all spells or incantations that were left in corners of these rooms. And they unearthed all this. And this cloth had, and I'm getting into this for Chuck's sake, this cloth had this blue striping. And I remember we're sitting back on the boat, the Dahabea, which served as our dig house. And John and I was taking pictures with a macro lens over his shoulder. We're trying to decipher this piece of cloth and or unravel it a bit. And it was pretty stiff, as you can imagine. It's been under the ground for 2,000 years. And or under the dirt and the dust and the sand. But one thing we could tell, and I was able to blow it up on camera where you could see the fibers really close up, that what looked almost black was actually an indigo stripe running through it. And at the time that this building dated to, now of course you have to figure this could have been thrown there any time during antiquity, over hundreds of years. But it dated with the other items they found in there to that period of Tiberius's stables there. And if this indeed dated back to that time, in that time, and Chuck, you'll like this, indigo was a color that you could only get in one place for dye at that period of time, and that was Judea, Israel. What would be Israel? What was Israel? And so, Chuck, you found a Hebrew coin, Roman coin dating back to 450 BC. That's intriguing because we looked at that piece of cloth and knew that it was from the period of time that was of Tiberius Caesar, but it was using a dye that only the Hebrews made, if you will. And so that was dye that was imported to Egypt or to somebody in Rome who brought that fabric with them. And it was probably the size of a handkerchief. It was just all coiled up, and there was a spell inside or an incantation. It was all bound up. So it was very interesting stuff. But there you go, Chuck. That was for you. You could incorporate some of these paranormal beliefs, by the way. Go ahead, Michael.
What do you call that? Forensic archaeology or something another, when you go back through and you look at the microscopes and stuff like that. Because I seen a thing today where they had a pilot from World War II that had they found him under an ice cap in the Sierra Nevadas, and they had used and he had, well, it was 1942 coins, but they was able to track down what plane that he had like fell out of or parachuted out before the Air Force become the Air Force. But that would be more like forensic archaeology when you start trying to or with the microscopes and stuff like that, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You know, archaeology is more your wheelhouse. I like history, but I don't dig around through it like you do.
That was fun. I'm not an archaeologist, so there were certain things I couldn't do, but John was there and he let me do certain things, and you know, I dug some things, and he loved the way I was digging a trench. I dug a big hole straight down, laying on my belly face down, and I dug arm deep at a place where I was, and he goes, "Well, Scotty, that's a very interesting trench you're digging there." He says, "I wanted it a bit more oblong and more shallow." And so, you know, I learned things along the way, but, you know, it's all interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So, Sarah,
you
were saying, you get back to what you were talking about.
Well, I mean, I lost that rabbit trail.
Sorry.
But it's interesting how, you know, the paranormal also evolves along with our culture. I mean, even for that particular time period that you were just mentioning earlier, you know, that is in Canaanite culture, you know, the descendants of El, the Rephaim, you know, they're finding curses and on sarcophagi coming from there in Egypt or you know, the pre-Canaanite, not pre-Canaanite, but I mean the Canaanite kings. And I mean the paranormal has always been integrated with you know, traditional cultures. I mean, even in most religions, I mean, every religion has its own form of mysticism at this point.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the Abrahamic ones do, and, you know, some, you know, Hinduism, others outside of culture. Have their own, you know, derivations and forms of mysticism. Said, oh, we're going to look at how these letters are put together in a page, and, you know, see if we can find esoteric knowledge. You know, all of that sort of be pre-derived from, you know, I guess it would be older than the Book of Enoch, right? I mean, before the Nephilim, because you know, one of the origin stories of magic is that that esoteric knowledge came from, you know, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, when they were trying to, you know, get it on with women. But you know,
right.
As far as that,
getting on, bow chicka bum bow,
real mature. Which you know, to tie it back to, you know, the book that you were saying, that I was surprised that, you know, that was meant for kids. You know, that book you were showing off earlier.
Yeah, actually, I didn't get this for my kid. Neither did Rainey. She got it. She bought it for her, but without really, because it was a shop. It was like a metaphysical shop. Sure, you can get that book. Put it on the counter. And when you start looking at it, you go, wait, there's a little more to this than just, it's not really a kid's book, although it's meant for kids to be able to take a look at. And so,
Yeah, I mean, I do have have a point of contention with that, which rubs me the
yeah,
wrong way, because majority of what I guess we would say quote unquote proper magic, there's always a caveat or a rule set in place, or
right,
that you have to be a certain age, to guarantee a certain mindset, because
right,
giving this to kids, I mean, their minds are still forming, they're forming their own opinions, but once you've reached a point of maturity and mental mental maturity, or whatever it is that you need to undergo, like some practices are hard on the body, like they require days of fasting, or whatever.
right.
Having a
And there's also sometimes,
monastic similar similar type of lifestyle. But I mean, a lot of this is a mature subject. I mean,
Yeah,
the fact that she has it now is a good opportunity for you to
yes,
address that, say why is this not good, or you need to watch out for it, because I mean,
yes,
it's I mean, to give that to uh a, to her at that age, that's like a form of grooming. They're trying to,
it is. It
yeah,
is grooming.
yeah.
I don't think it's meant to be negative grooming. It's meant to be positive. That's whoever
I
wrote
mean,
this book has a
you give,
firm
it's
belief
like
in
that
this stuff.
sensation. You give an inch, and then
Yep.
you give an inch, but it's opening that doorway. I mean, like we were
Hmm.
talking earlier about the page with the Ouija board and the shot glass, or
Right.
even having a particular mindset of going into the woods and doing something, or thinking
Yeah.
a certain way, focusing all your anger. Like say if Rowan got mad at Ellery and was focusing
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
anger, and
Exactly.
it's about building those energetic tapestry of connections.
but,
Yes. That's a great way to put it.
but
Yeah.
don't you see more of the occult mainstream now? Even Harry Potter told the kids, all them kids was young, do magic, get you a wand, and they
Yeah.
got, and
Get your wand.
and everything is it's a $1 billion enterprise now. If you go, what is it? Universal has the whole Hogwarts train with all this money that the animatronics that runs through. So they have pushed the occult a whole lot more mainstream,
Yeah.
and they're always wanting to look at the good side, but there is a very, very dark side to the occult.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
there definitely is, but in that case, with the whole promotion
there it
of
is.
magic, I mean, that's more of like an empowerment issue, because it's like you say, the Catholic Church takes issue of Harry Potter, because they're like, where's God in this?
Right.
They don't talk about God, they talk about self-empowerment.
Well, it's
Which,
interesting. We talked about that Jesus, Potter, Harry, Christ. We talked about that several months ago, 6-7 months ago now. But how that even J.K. Rowling came out and said, I didn't have a particular interest in trying to make Harry Potter a divine character, a messianic type. She said, but he became that. And as an archetype, which was very interesting. There were a lot of parents, Christian-oriented parents, that didn't want their kids reading those books at the beginning. But by the end of the book, so about the middle of the series, they started going, wait a minute, there's a lot of good stuff in this. And evil is shown as true evil, good is shown as good. So, hey, I want to, since I talked about it with Chuck, I'm veering off a little bit and back onto this topic. I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you guys all something.
All right, while you're doing that, I'll let the dog back in.
All right. I'm going to share my screen.
and I'll keep talking. So
You keep talking.
we have that, and we have Harry Potter now, but you think about in the past, we have the stories of messianic cultures.
Yes.
The coming of the Messiah. Okay, is there somebody's going to come save us from whatever
Right.
oppression that they were undergoing? I mean, to me, it seems like that's just taking a more modern form, as far
Right.
as
Right.
trying to address certain things, which religion and things like the Bible, they, you have to straddle a fine line with, yes, you have to have some self-empowerment, but then the rest, you have to either leave to God. It's that situation where
Right.
Saul and the Witch of Endor,
Yeah.
with Saul and the Witch of Endor, he was relying on Samuel for everything, because he knew whatever Samuel told him would work. But even when Samuel was died and was taken away from him, he was relying more on Samuel than he was on God itself, which is why a lot of people have take issue with divination, or and the tools involved, like the Ouija board or rods, or and all that. But
Here, I'm gonna show a couple of pictures off here. These are really hazy because I took them with a telephoto lens from across the Nile. Their site spans both sides of the Nile, but this mound you see right here in the middle, this on the other side there's quarry walls here, a narrow, not a valley, but passageway back in there, and that's where the stables all were on the other side of this. But what you see on the top of this mound here, and there's a lot of dust in the air. You see people standing here. They're digging up the foundations of that building. This is where we found that that piece of cloth. And I know I have better pictures that are cleaner than that of that area. Let me just see if maybe they're earlier. But that's the mound. That was here they are. Yeah, it's all of these. So this is the area right here that is the stables of Tiberius, right here where we were all working. This is in all of that rubble and stone and sand and dust. That is a turquoise bead that's about 2,000 years old that John found in them. That's John's hand there. While we're digging through all of this stuff, that's John in the middle down on his haunches. But this is the whole team as we're sorting pottery shards and going through stuff. I'm going to just flip through these fast. Now, there's the mound from across the river. It's not really a mound. It's just up on the top of the quarry face. You can see back the wall back here in the background. There's the area down below in between, and the stables were kind of facing that way. And these are the administrative offices that were up in the top. And let's see if I don't know if I can make that larger or not. Yes, I can. So there, this is everybody up top there. This was the foundation stones were all along in here. And we're digging out this room, and then there's a little stairway that goes down the other side. And these are the muktas that they would carry off the debris in and dump it over the edge. So that's one of the archaeologists. That's Oli. I can't remember his last name. He's one of the archaeologists that was there. But I took a whole bunch of pictures because I just wanted to show what they were doing. And so I went through and I showed all these pictures of them. There's pictures of, John is up in here and everybody's up in here. They were all doing that. And I was up there working with them one day. There's that one picture I have of me in the headdress and I'm all dusty and dirty. And that was the day I was working over there with them. But I wanted to go down here and show you. It was up in that room. Once again, this room right up here. And I believe that's John standing there. That's his table with all his stuff. Yeah, there's John and Oli. And everybody's digging through this room up on the top. And in that room is where he found those bits of hair and cloth. And Chuck Thurston, if you're still out there, I want you to see this. Let's see, it's down past this. I took some close-up images. This is all their site. It's right down in here somewhere, I do believe. Down through here. Hang on, we're getting there. I'm going to show you this ball of fabric that we started to unravel. Here it is. All right. I'm going to start with, is that it? No, next one over. There it is. Now, this is this lump of fabric that we found in that spot up on top. Let's see, I've got some really close pictures of it. John is kind of gently trying to see if he could unfold some of the folds of fabric here. But this is a good spot to show you the color. We're seeing this color right here. It had red on it, red stripes, but it also had blue stripes. And this, and you can see just, the fibers of this thing, the coarse fabric, but you can see the blue in that. And that was that Israeli Judean indigo that you couldn't find anywhere else at the time.
Were they able to match the dyeing practices of that time with this fabric?
I'm not I know they have.
Okay.
I'm not sure when they did that. They didn't do that when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
They, of course, sent some of this stuff on for analysis. But that's we had some specialists there, other archaeologists said that is Middle Eastern, that is Israeli dye, this indigo, because it was the only place you could get it. And so I just wanted to show that. I thought of that as I was talking about it, and I don't think I have any cleaner pictures of it than that.
So that could, I get a couple of thoughts that I have is that if that's Israeli dye is present, that's probably coming from an affluent person, right?
Yes. It was more probable that it was from somebody very affluent. It's something that might not have been shipped to Egypt. It might have been a Roman that owned it and brought it with him. You can see, by the way, I thought this was really interesting when you could start to see these
weaving.
fibers
Mm-hmm.
and how it's woven together. So are there paranormal qualities to this? Maybe.
It's possible that it's a type of a form of talismanic.
Talisman, yep.
Yeah. So, considering the location is stable, somebody could be trying to bring themselves luck or bring harm to a rival or something like that.
Exactly.
It depends what they found inside the bag, or often the use of hair, like you were talking, there was hair in the corners and stuff. That's common in talismanic magic.
I thought that I might have had some more photos of some of those artifacts off that hill. But yeah, okay. Here, I'll just show you this because it's fun.
Oh, that's a nice picture.
Dirty, digging in old silt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I was going to say that thing looked like it needed to be run through the general cycle on a Maytag, but it looked
dude, my body needed to be run through the general cycle of a Maytag after that.
Yeah.
Just needed to use like an air hose or a pressure washer or something.
Yeah, well, we had the showers from over there, and we had the shower on the boat. This was our boat right here, by the way. This is where the dig house was. It was on this dahabea. It'll open up. So it's the Speas of Horemheb. We were moored here for 7 weeks. And the cabins all underneath, and all the upper deck was just canvas roofs, and this was where all the desks were, books, artifacts spread all over the floor, and that was our dig house. And I see I have more artifacts showing up here. I just want to see if I had one of the pieces that we dug up the day I was digging my big long hole. Oh, here you go. Here's this fabric again. So this was taken in very low light on the desk, but that's that piece of fabric I mentioned. And there was another piece we found that we think, and it was right where I was digging that big hole. I don't see it in here. Oh, and coins, all kinds of coins with a Tiberius's image on it. You could make out, I think this is a hippo on this one. So it's very interesting stuff. But there was one where there was a wax seal that Maria found, and it had the fingerprints still in it of the person who had molded it and made it. Here, this piece right here. This was a piece that we found where I was digging, and it's about 2 feet long, 18 inches maybe, and it's they couldn't figure out what it was. It's hollow. It's got a place for a shaft to be put in it. They thought it might have been some kind of piece used as a bellows. So that was all right in that area too. So I don't know how Flynn got in the middle of that, but there he is, back at the day in the day. But there you go. That's I thought I had more pictures of that mound. That's for you, Chuck, if you're still around and still watching. Hoping you got a. Oh, this is where we were digging when I found that bellows piece, right in here. It was all up. It's kind of stair stepped up to. There's a big path that runs along the top up here, and we were digging out right down in here, above all these shrines, and that's where that was found, in the quarry right there. So right down in these areas, we brushed that. This was all one big sandy hill. In the morning, it was this by the afternoon. We had dug it all out and brushed it out, and so very cool stuff. Very few pictures of me. You know why? I'm taking all the pictures. So, but I thought there was something more interesting with that piece of fabric, and this is all that same trip. Yeah, this is where we are doing this. We're right down in here. And I dug, that might be my hole for all I know. Or I was up one layer, but that's where we found that bellows. It was laying right in here, like in the stairs. But this was all just like, it looked just like this stuff back here in the background when we started in the morning. And then we cleared it all out. And this is all quarried stone, the stair stepping. So very interesting stuff. Our ferry that takes us back to the Dahabea. And we were sandbagging because of this one shrine that we uncovered. And I'm just going to see if it shows up in here. Just flipping through. Oh, it almost looked like a video.
Yeah.
That shrine right there was what we were uncovering. This one back here behind Oli. And it's Momin Saad. Remember when he came on my show one night? He called from Egypt, and we had him on. Momin Saad. He was the head from the Ministry of Antiquities of everything at Karnak temples, and then they made him the Inspector General at the Cairo airport, or the Luxor airport, which is bigger than you might think. It's not just a little office in the airport. It's all the incoming and outgoing and antiquities and all of that stuff. So that's Momin, though. And yeah, these were just our Egyptian workers. So good times, good day. Chaos. Okay, that's different now. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to show you, what we were working on there. And that was for Chuck, who might not even be here right now. Yeah. So that's all.
Chuck's still here. He said he had tons of cool stuff. I love ancient things. Got tons of Indian airheads I found over the years. It is full of them. Some that are
nice. Let me stop my screen. There we go.
Thanks, Val. I got her to share the link that I put up on my Facebook so people could find me in the morning sitting in for KB.
Right on.
Like I said, send me a friend's request so you'll see it go live. Because like I said, I'm still having trouble with StreamYard. It's a little more difficult to set up than what I thought. I thought I could breeze through it, but I later found out that is not the case.
Yeah. Thanks, Barbie D.
But like I said, that's like I was telling Scotty. After you visit the Middle East, you find sand in places you never thought you had sand.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And if you stay there long enough, you end up having sinus trouble.
It's the beach without the benefit of the ocean.
Yes.
Pretty much. It was a beach party. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is I do have to reconnect because I got to show you guys this. This is my favorite picture at Gebel El Silsila. And this was taken by Momin Saad. I look rather like I'm not very happy in this, but I am. This was the shrine of Senenmut. This guy back here, over my shoulder, right there. I've talked about him. The guy I think was Moses, the historical Moses. And I think I wrote a whole book about it, so there's a lot more than me just saying, I think that's Moses. Here, I want to show you guys something. Share my screen again. We'll go over here, click on that and that, and go back over here. There it is. That's my favorite picture. This is the shrine of Senenmut. What's that say? Is sharing my screen. Yep. And so the moment took a few pictures. I was smiling in some, not in others. But there he is, Senenmut. Hey. And this is the inside of the shrine. His inscription is in there and all of that. But that's one of my favorite shots because of who it is. And there's Momin in there. So that's Senenmut. He was all defaced. If you remember me talking about all of his stuff and his statues being defaced along with Hatshepsut. There's Momin Saad. This is the guy. This is my camera roll from out there. So here's Momin. We were just walking all around the shrines out there. And he said, "You take picture of book for me, for book." And so I took his, and he's got a little better English than that. But so we went out and we shot a bunch of shots. So he could use them on his books and stuff. But I was going to see if there was more to anything else that I wanted to show you while I've now got it back up here. This is, that's not Maria. It looked like her in miniature. This might be the stables. Let's see. Yes, this is the stables area. Again, let me do it this way. All these heaps that you see all around, these are all on the top there. These are all the spoil heaps. I'm trying to look for a shot that shows you a wider shot of all of this. The spoil heap from over the years of all the quarrying, they would take, just like these muck tucks I showed you where they're carrying those like rubberized, here, John's got one on his shoulder here. All of these piles here that are all around on this side of the Nile are all the piles and debris for thousands of years of quarrying. And it's all hills now and paths going all over the place. And here we're up on this this stable. This is the other side of it now. I was standing over on the other side of the river here, taking these shots. And this back here, that's that big stone. They call it Kingfisher Stone right here, just over the head of, what's her name here? And that's where we were digging out that quarry down below here. But John and Momin, there's, look at the spoil heaps. That's from all the quarrying from thousands of years ago. And there's paths all through it, and some of our Egyptians. These are some of the buildings that were being uncovered in the stables area up on the top. And that's where we've... Go ahead.
No, I said it makes you think what people 1,000 years from now are going to be.
Oh, yeah.
Searching into our landfills, and what are they finding?
What are they going to find? Exactly. I asked John, I said, how many bodies do you suppose are underneath those 1,000 years of rubble? He says, good God, Scotty. He says, if I had the manpower, he says, we'd be digging them out, trying to find things. But is that my, yes, I think that's my, like yours, Michael? There's mine.
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, I remind, it's like I told them the other night on Wicked Women, the reason I wear the she mags, because I don't physically own a tie no more. And if they want to fix it,
yeah,
you know, send them on over. Then I'll have to get Scotty to show me how to tie. I haven't tied a tie in so long.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's I have to watch a YouTube video or something.
I can show you how to tie a tie.
Somebody asked me, they said, "How did you get to the Army without tying a tie?" I said, "I kept one tie, tied the whole time."
Kept one tied all the time.
Yeah, we had a black skinny tie. You just loosened the knot, slid it off your head, hung it on the rack. Then after you started making money, you went clip on or bow tie.
Clip-ons.
All else
I'm a
fails was
purist.
always YouTube. So.
Yep, always YouTube.
That's right.
But like I said, I have a collection of the sheet mags here, and this is one of the original ones that I brought back. And everybody's like, "Oh," and that's like when somebody told Scotty one night, "Oh, y'all have no culture or whatever." And I'm thinking, we incorporate the best of all the cultures.
Yeah, we do have culture.
And that's what I thought. I like my culture. And this even goes back to like history. The SAS, that started like all the elite covert operation things. If you look at them guys back in the 40s, they all took on Aramaic culture. They wore the sheet masks because they kept fan out of your, sand in your face.
By the way, that's Komombo you see in the distance there. This is the far southern reaches of John and Maria said. It's all desert, but there's the city, Komombo. It's more like a big overgrown village. But this is Maria, and we were out walking around looking at, and she was showing me petroglyphs. So all of this stuff. And she's pointing out some of the hieroglyphs there. That's John's wife, Maria, by the way, for those of you who don't know. She is the head of the archaeological mission there. She's the doctorate from Lund University in Sweden. Here you can see more of it. And so we went out and there's Moman. We were just looking through all the petroglyphs out there. There's John.
Did you find any connections to L over there?
To which?
Did you find any connections to L over there?
L, no, I did not. I think others have. Not so much at Gebel El Silsila. I think this was a major quarrying site. Most of the stone taken out of Gebel El Silsila went into Luxor or ancient Thebes, and it's not, I don't think it went up to Cairo so much, but
or do you find that more in Algeria and Syria in that way?
I don't know. I don't have precise knowledge of that, so I couldn't be precise with my answer. Mm-hmm. There's Maria.
Taking a picture of somebody taking a picture.
Yeah. Take a picture of me taking a picture of her.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the dahabeah that they used in the Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser, the first movie. That came by and somebody said, "Oh, look." One of the Egyptians, that is the dahabeah they used. So I think I have much more that pertains to what I was talking about there. Sorry, I'm flipping through these really fast, folks.
But there's a lot of history in the Middle East that is still buried under sand.
That's when I got home.
And they're still finding towns and villages that was, what was it, Troy? Everybody said, "Oh, Troy was a myth." Then they found it.
And they found it. Schliemann.
Yeah, all thing I gotta do is get a big enough shovel to move enough sand, and they said all that was a vast rainforest. 5,000 years ago, and I think they need to fly some. What is the radar thing that or sonar? What are they?
LiDAR.
LiDAR, yeah, because they did that all through, and that's how they found a lot of the Aztec stuff and a lot of the Mayan stuff.
Yeah,
overgrown with just jungle. But I was going to ask you, when you was over there and all the lights was out, you don't have an appreciation of how bright the stars are till you get away from light pollution.
Oh, ain't that the truth? Anna Maria.
I like her sheet mag.
What's that?
I said I like hers. I like that color on
oh yeah, that's the one I have. This is John. Give me one just like theirs.
Yeah.
And he said it was British. I'm the kind of photographer by the way, who will take 100 pictures to get the one that I want to use.
Yep.
That's why you see me repetitively taking shots like these
But
over and over again.
But that's what they teach you in photo class. That's the reason you hear the shutter speed going off so much.
Yeah.
Because they might take 75 pictures to get the one they want.
Well, I was a photography minor in college, and we're talking back 78, 79, 80. And my professor, Ed Cunningham, was one of Nixon's staff photographers. And I learned all, film and all of that, darkroom process and all. It's all digital now. But he was the one that told me, he says, for every 1,000 shots you take, he says, you're going to get that one that's your prize. And he's absolutely correct about that. That's why I did this kind of stuff. So there, we're back to where we started.
Yeah.
So stop sharing screen. Boom. So there you go. I hope that didn't bore anybody. I wanted to look up that stuff for Chuck, and at the same time show you a couple other pictures while we were there. Doesn't have much to do with our earlier topic tonight, but I'd like to go back and specifically, because I didn't do this any time I was there. I didn't do any specific paranormal investigating there. With all the times I've been there, I had paranormal experiences, but I didn't really take equipment and go looking. We did some scrying off of a piece of highly polished black obsidian, and we took it into the space of Horemheb. They're right behind where the boat was moored, and tried to do some scrying in there. It actually kind of freaked me out a little bit. I don't get freaked out easily. I didn't see much, but I was nervous. Nervous is not what's the word where you're anticipating, or I got to tell you what, the hair was standing up in the back of my neck and on my arms. I'm looking into that and I'm scrying with it. And I said, nope, I'm done. I'm not going to do this right now. I think the feeling was so overwhelming. It wasn't fear. It was
apprehension.
The feeling that if I keep looking, I'm going to see something I don't want to see. And so yeah.
But didn't you have a different feeling even when you got off the airplane there? It was just like really, yeah, it was just like really, really old energy to me there the whole time I was
there.
Yeah. Like a lot of blood-soaked skull for some reason. And I even talked to some of the other people that I felt comfortable with.
Dave's pulling a Professor Bauer. He's coming in at the end.
Yeah, I am.
want to say a little thing here.
Is pensive the word you're looking for?
No, I just read that. No, that's not the word. I think it was, okay, I'm trying to relay the fact that it was, I think, a supernatural, spiritual feeling without going overboard and saying that. But I think I'm looking at that.
I said apprehension.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. While you're doing that,
yeah,
what are the locals thinking about you and John going in there? Are they really freaked out by that kind of stuff?
They're firm believers. Momin Saad, who you saw there and who was on the show once.
Yep, I know Momin. Yeah.
He gave me some stories of things that he's encountered there. So we sat doing a radio show with all these other archaeologists sitting around us, and guys from the Ministry of Antiquities in Egypt, and Muslims, Egyptian Muslims. It was like they ended up having a bad experience with this guy, and I haven't talked to him in probably 7 years. But he was one of the Ministry of Antiquities guys. It turned out there was a little corruption with not Momin, somebody else. So I haven't talked to him in a while. I want to say Saad wasn't his last name, but he was another Muhammad. But he, great guy. He reminded me of Salah from the Indiana Jones pictures. He talked like that. we were out walking, Momen, and I, and John's daughter. We were all walking out when I took those pictures of him, and he took the one of me in Sentiment Shrine. We're way down. We're a couple of miles down the river, exploring the Western shrines. And we see two people walking toward us. They're about a quarter mile away. Not that big. And as they're getting closer, I hear, "Scotty, me boyo!" He calls out. He got boyo from John, who, grew up on the Welsh border. And "Scotty, me boyo!" And it's him. And it bothers me that I'm not remembering his name. And we were all friends, and he was very friendly. It just turned out there were other things that he got removed or something from his office or something, but we haven't talked since. But he came give me a big gregarious hug, and he's the guy that one morning I came up on deck of the Dahabea about 6 a.m, and he's already there. He stayed at home he lived in Komombo, and he was the Inspector General of Komombo. That's what he was, for the Ministry of Antiquities. And so I came up, and he's sitting there having coffee already, and he yells out again, "Scotty, me boyo, come and sit and have coffee." And his English was very good. And again, he reminded me of Salah. And so we sat down, and this would interest you, Sarah, from the Muslim angle of it. In asking all these guys about paranormal experiences, I asked him, he said to me, as we sat down, he said, "I overheard you talking the other day." And he says, "You said something about having lost your faith." He says, "What does this mean? Tell me what this means for you." And I said, "Well, and as I've explained on this show, my position on my faith." And he says, "I'm very intrigued by that." I said, "Well, how about you? Let me ask you a question." I said, "We talked about the paranormal stuff," which he said he's had many experiences like that, seeing in broad daylight, seeing apparitions in some of these tombs and some of these shrines along the Nile. Shrine being, as big as this room, just born out of the wall and facing the river. And he said he does what I saw a lot of Muslim men over there do when you would ask a question about things. And he'd go, his eyebrows would go up and his eyes would go closed. I think it's a very cultural thing. He'd go, "My faith, Scotty," he says, "my faith." Because I asked him, I said, "You've got faith. You've got a Muslim faith that you adhere to." And I said, "I know it's a little stricter than Christian faith in areas." And I says, "But you're also a scientist and an archaeologist." I said, "Do you find any problem juxtaposing those two?" And he goes, "My faith, Scotty," he says, "is all over here." He says, "I believe this. This runs my life, my family, everything about who I am." He says, "My science is over here." He says, "And I never let them meet." I said, "How do you accomplish that?" And he says, I just consciously put them away from each other." I said, "Have you ever run across discoveries that would make you doubt the things you believe by faith?" And he said, again, he did the, "Well," he says, "there are many mysterious things." And he says, like I said, he says, "My faith is here, my science is here." He says, "Have they crossed at times?" "Yes." And he says, "I don't let them cross." And I said, "So you've run into things that make you question
Don't
things,
cross the streams.
Don't cross the streams." And he finally, he admitted he wasn't being coy about it. And he says, "Yeah." He says, "I have run across discoveries and things that I know as a scientist that contradict what I believe by faith." And he says, "That's why I keep them apart." And he says, "Because I don't want it to do that to me." And that was his thing. But they all had paranormal experiences, which was very interesting. And this Moment told me about a spell. There was a woman, and I don't remember the details. Somebody was sick, and they went to a witch, the equivalent of a witch, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is forbidden in Islam. But I don't know that for sure. But they went to her and concocted some spell that had horse sweat and hair in it and all kinds of different things. And, they had to take it to the sick person and apply it and then have them drink some of it. I'm like, oh my God. And I said, if that didn't kill you, she was healed, right? So, but Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ says, Kat, I hate that name. Which name?
That's
No,
but I mean
that was Kit.
his view is surprisingly is like directly opposite of mine, because even
Really?
for me, I try to not really incorporate the two, but I mean one doesn't negate the other. Just because you have an
Oh, right.
explanation for something, that doesn't mean it's any less divine. At least in my view.
I don't want to misrepresent his point of view. He was still saying my faith is what governs all. He says, but I have found things that I feel that contradict what I believe by faith. And
I think the biggest fear is not contradicting his faith, but finding something that contradicts the academia of what Egyptologists have decided is right. So by that I mean, let's say you're working in the Great Pyramid and you discover it is some sort of giant energy producing machine.
Yeah, big battery.
Created by thousands of years before. Who is it that they attribute it to?
I think it was built by the Anunnaki, but
the
I do
Great
too.
Pyramid, Cheops.
Yeah, Cheops. Okay,
Khufu, Cheops.
Khufu. Yeah, okay. So let's say they find something in there that shows it's 100,000 years older than that, and it was built by a civilization with technology far beyond what we have today. No one's going to let that out. As an Egyptologist, as one of their head guys, you would think he would be more afraid of finding that, than finding something that makes him question Muhammad or something.
Right. Well, that is like the Egyptian government. I've talked about the city of Avaris, Pithom and Ramses, Pi-Ramses, which the book of Exodus in the Old Testament says, and the Hebrews built the treasure cities of Pithom and Ramses. Well, that was a section that was rewritten. Well, the whole Old Testament was reconstructed 1,000 years after that happened, 1,500 years after it happened. And so they're going by those current names that they knew those places by. It's not like modern days nowadays. It's like I said, New York City used to be known as New Amsterdam until the British took it over and renamed it. And so the same thing with Pi-Ramses used to be Avaris. And you can go visit Avaris. And there's archaeological digs that go there. But if you ever hint that you were trying to connect Avaris to the story of Joseph in the Bible, Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat chapter in the Genesis, that Joseph, they would shut you down because it was for political reasons, because they said they are quite convinced that Avaris was a city where Joseph lived in antiquity. And he's the one who brought his family, Jacob, and the clan of Israel. Jacob, known also as Israel. His clan of about 70 family members. And it was from there, after Joseph fell out of memory with the pharaohs, that they enslaved or put into servitude the remnant of Jacob's family, Israel's family, and which led up, of course, to the Exodus. And so they believe that Joseph was there. They believe they found his palace, as it's described in the book of Genesis. They believe they found his tomb. They believe they found a statue of him. I covered all this in one show. And his brothers. And, of course, his bones weren't in there. The Bible says they took his bones with them when they left on the Exodus. But the statue is there, and it's smashed. And inside one of these tombs on the palace grounds. But all of that to say that if you go there to Avaris, They don't want to hear any talk of Joseph or of anything that would give politically Israel in current day the right to try to claim that land, because all the Hebrews were there.
Nothing is forgotten.
Nothing's forgotten. And so you have to be very careful about that. You just go to look around there. Well, what are you doing? We're researching a book on the Exodus. Well, let me show you to the door. Or
Don't go away.
the
man.
next dune over.
Just go away. Yeah, don't go away.
So,
man.
because of that issue of faith, politics, science, all of that wrapped up together.
But
There's
if you
a-
even mentioned like the concept of the pyramids as a energy device or any of that, they're done with you. Okay,
Yeah.
you got to go now.
Yep.
There's also the concept of in order to move forward, you have to you're building on a certain set of, not necessarily religious, but I mean a certain set of beliefs that you're building on to move forward, and in theories and stuff. So if you're pulling away from one of the foundation building blocks of there, say no, it's this thing, it's not what we thought it was, then everybody falls, everything falls like a house of cards.
Well, all academia is just so
No, Cat.
terrified,
No.
so terrified of having what they've been preaching for the last 100 years found out to be wrong.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
it's so frustrating because to me, science is an ever moving thing. You should always be accepting in new data and taking that and analyzing it and seeing how it fits into what we already have. And if it plugs a hole, great. If it pushes a wedge in and says, nope, this has to fit here, and what you thought connected didn't connect without this, then you have to be able to adapt, or it's not real science.
Right.
right.
I mean, even if you look at something earlier, like going from a believing that we are the center of the universe versus
Right.
sun.
Right.
We're going around
Exactly.
the sun. That was a big deal. It took forever. People were
I totally pissed off a scientist one day. This guy that's all about science. He was steadfast in his thing and wouldn't look at anything that I was saying. And I finally said, so you have now become the Pope. You are to this theory as the Pope was to Copernicus.
There you go.
And he just froze. And I'm like, because that's what you're doing. They were so steadfast that everything revolved around the earth and anything else was wrong and heresy. So if you are going to take that same attitude that there couldn't have been ancient giants, or there couldn't have been this, or there couldn't
What was
have
the
been that.
famous line of Galileo when they had his trial for heresy? Because he happened to suggest that the earth rotates around the sun and not the other way around. And they were going to try him. They would have burned him at the stake.
Yep.
And so he recants. He's given the opportunity to recant. And what's his famous line? He says, and I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it, and if I'm using the right word. He said, I heretofore do recant. However, it does turn. Something like that. And he got off, but
Well, got off. He was basically in house or under house arrest for
the rest of his life.
Most of his life. Yeah.
But you look at Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock has been digging this up, but he went against mainstream so hard that they said, "Oh no, he's a crackpot."
Yep.
And
they've done everything they could to discredit him.
And they've called him a racist and everything else. And I seen one of his things one time. He said, "I'm a racist." He said, "I'm married to a woman of color. I'm British."
Yeah, Santha, his wife, is a beautiful Indian woman, if I think Eastern, dot no feather.
Yeah, and,
as Reuben Fastorch would say.
But
she's an Indian, dot no feather.
But they have really, really tried to, like you said, modern day burn him at the stake, because his belief rocked everything that they had put out in the history books.
And yet there's so much evidence to back up what his theory is.
And what is it? What was the place he just dug up that they found that nobody's like, oh, nothing to see here. You don't want to dig here. You don't want to dig here.
What new now? What new thing?
No, well, they found it in 86 or something like that, and they just
The Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe. Yeah.
Now I can't pronounce it, but yeah, and
Göbekli Tepe.
yeah, it's like 15.
Or as Andrew Collins would say when he was on the show, John and I would tease him about this. He's from Wiltshire in England. He'd go, Göbekli Tepe. And we'd say, oh, is it pronounced? We say, wait, Andrew, how did you pronounce it? Tepai? And we said, is it Göbekli Tepe? And so we would make fun of him for that. But there was, oh, damn, a train of thought. I wanted to mention something here about somebody that was said on this whole thing of contradicting things. Oh, it was, if any of you have heard of David Roll, he is a Egyptologist, Dr. David Roll, and he was one who several years ago put forward a theory of a fifth Egyptian list of kings, chronology of the Egyptian kings. There are four. There's the Oxford. There's four of them. Well, he proposed a fifth. And his fifth was based on his study of trying to place a biblical Moses. He's not a biblical scholar. He's a biblical scholar. He's not a religious scholar. He's an agnostic. But he wrote about the Exodus. He wrote about Moses. He got a whole theory about who he thinks Moses was. And in order to make it work, he had to rewrite the chronology of the Egyptian kings. And my old professor, Dr. Ailing, who I've talked about before, who's an Egyptologist, was the chair of history at the University of Northwestern, and
he the one that told you your theory was wrong?
The one that what?
Told you your theory was wrong?
Not Dr. Ailing.
Oh.
But Ailing said of David Roll, he said, oh, he says, my, he says he created his own chronology. He says, little does David know, but he says in academic circles, he says we refer to him as roly-poly. And, Dr. Ailing's old, so that was really funny. And he's an academic, so that was an academic's joke. Roly-poly, ha, 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 ha. But I was having a discussion with him because David Roll about writing the foreword to John's and my book on the Exodus. Well, I'd be happy to take a look at it, he says. And so I forwarded him a manuscript, and he comes back a week later and he says, I can't write a forward for your book because you're simply wrong.
Well, yeah, that's what I said.
And that's what prompted me to remember that story. Oh, you're simply wrong. You're asses and you're wrong. And I said, you don't have to agree with us. We'd still let you write our forward. And he says, no, I wouldn't write a forward. And he says, neither of you have degrees. He says, so I can't lend my name to your little fanciful trollops of, whatever and whatever. And now what was interesting, that took place when we were in Egypt and my daughters were with me. This is 2014. No, it was, I'm wrong. There was a different discussion with him. That's right, because the book came out in 2013. But he would always come on my posts and try to challenge what I was saying historically or archaeologically about something. And he came on and he wrote something to me once, David Roll, and he said, I'll bet you don't even know what this and this and this and this abbreviation means. And I go, oh, do you mean, the early Bronze Age? And I said, I do know what that means. And, we got into that. And he used to try to come in and be polite and nice, but kept trying to tear everything down that I would say. And Abby and Bryn, my twins, those of you that don't know them by name, we were in Egypt and we were sitting on the Dahabeh, and they go, who is this David Roll fucker? They said to me. Why is he talking to you that way? And I said, and I told him, he doesn't think we know anything, and so on and so on. And I will say this, I give David Roll credit where it's due. He is a magnificently intelligent man, and he's written some fantastic books. I just disagree with him on his Exodus theory. So, but he's kind of trying to take me to task on a post I had put up because we were in Egypt and we were posting things. And my daughters, oh man, they laid into him in a very Abby and Bryn sarcastic.
Those girls have your six big time.
And they said something about they're talking to him, and they're talking as they're typing back to him. Well, old man, this is it. You know, my daughter's talking to David Roll that way. Well, old chap, they call it, old chap. It's more like this. And so he hasn't talked to me much after that, but you know, every now and then there was something. But he's the guy, by the way, that introduced me to that whole idea of Moses in the burning bush, where it uses the phrase, I am that I am, is what Moses said, what should I tell the people you sent me? Which was Moses's way of saying, if I know your name, there's that old mythology that if you know the god or the demon or the entity's name, you have power over it. It's private name. So when Moses meets God at the burning bush, and this is so easy to look over unless you know how to read between the lines with this. And in the Hebrew, he says, God says, so I'm going to send you and all this. Okay, I'll go. He says, whom shall I say sent me? In other words, what's your private name? And God basically says, none of your goddamn business what my name is. He says, you tell them I am sent you. I am that I am they speak of. And I am that I am. Well, it was David Roll who told me we were having a conversation about this stuff. And he said, did you know that that's the only place in the Bible where you find a turn of phrase that is a word play off of Mesopotamian language? And I said, no, do tell. And he said, I am that I am was actually a wordplay that Moses, who authored it, would have known this in his day, that phrase was taken from a Mesopotamian wordplay that meant, I am that Enki they speak of. That was like a wordplay for Enki. And so, in essence, what God was saying to Moses in the burning bush was, Moses, who shall I say send me? And God said, you tell them I am sent you. I am that I am. That word phrase from Mesopotamia, I am that Enki they speak of. Now, the big question is, you don't know the connotation. Is God saying, Enki? That's really me. He's equating himself with Enki, or is he saying, that God they call Enki? That's really me, not Enki. And so you don't know what the connotation is there. Is he equating himself or saying, I'm not him? So I am that Enki they speak of, I'm God. I'm better than that. So it was interesting. But David Roll, he used to write he did a couple of articles for Intrepid magazine when I published the magazine. And so, but he just wouldn't write the foreword for John and me. You're simply asses and you're wrong. Going
What
off
a pompous douchebag, though.
What's that?
What a pompous douchebag, though.
He was rather pompous. And I disagree with his point of view on that. I don't dislike him. I just think he's wrong. He's an ass.
I don't necessarily think he's wrong. I just don't think he's put it that way.
Yes. I don't believe that. And he knows a shitload more than I know. He spent his whole life doing this.
Well, you don't have a degree.
But I don't have a degree. So what the hell do I know?
Which I absolutely hate. People that
yes.
take that attitude.
All right. But I wonder who got drunk and named Cat's Town, Gopher Crotch, Nebraska.
Yeah, I was just going to say something about the Gopher Crotch.
Yeah. Who got drunk and named that?
Yeah,
they didn't have a degree either.
Oh, the ghosts are telling you it's bedtime, Cat.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and they're telling me the same thing because it's 11:13. We got to be done. Sarah, did we put you to sleep, or are you still there?
No, I'm still here.
Sarah.
I'm still here. I've yawned about 10 times.
Yeah.
So we're going to get out of here. Let's call it a night.
All right.
So, Sarah, good to see you. Good to see your big pink dot today.
All right. Thanks, guys.
And I'll talk to you later. Thanks for participating. I appreciate everything you bring to the table. See you later. All right. And Uncle Dave, get out of here.
All right.
Talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Coffee
And Michael?
with me, sitting in the morning. Find me.
Yep. Morning Coffee with KB is being hosted by Michael tomorrow morning. So go over to Michael's Facebook page, and you'll be able to catch it at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central.
No.
Oh, you're going an hour later?
Yeah, hour later.
10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. So there you go.
Yep. Like I said, you can.
Boom.
I'm easy to find. First, middle, last name. Michael Lee
Yes.
Brewer. Yeah. If you go on Michael Brewer's page, that's my son. He cuts meat. He don't.
Michael Lee Brewer is where you find it, Steph.
Yep.
Michael Lee Brewer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you one of these as I send you off, Michael. I could also do the.
Oh yeah.
Or I could go British.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
So
first time I saw that, I thought he was swatting flies when I first.
Yeah, because they kind of they had the boots and they jump, click their heels and go.
Yeah, it was like I thought he was trying to
snap it up there. All right, Michael, you have a good night.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here, brother. See you later. Live long and prosper. And everybody else, I'm just going to say the same thing to you because it's that time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the show. The informal part of the show, the Captain's Cabin especially. Appreciate it all. And so all of you, live long and prosper.